From 1980 to 1992, John Timmerman, a member of the Center for UFO Studies, traveled around the United States doing exhibits and giving lectures. In that time, he encountered thousands of people interested in sharing their own UFO and paranormal encounter stories with him. He dutifully recorded each interview and over time amassed an impressive 1,200 audio tapes filled with people's real-life experiences with the unknown. Catherine Deal, a Lima, Ohio schoolteacher and UFO buff, offered to meticulously transcribe the hours of tapes. Author Michael D. Swords also assisted in transcribing the tapes, eventually publishing them in a 2011 book titled Grassroots UFOs, Case Reports from the Center for UFO Studies. In the book, there are numerous interesting reports, many of which I plan to cover in later videos. For now, I would like to discuss a case that happened on September 23, 1973. Those with an interest in Fortean literature will no doubt be aware of the fact that 1973 was the year when things went crazy with regards to the paranormal. Books and documentaries have been produced detailing the shocking number of UFO sightings, alien and Bigfoot encounters, Men in Black, and generally high strangeness cases that went down that year. This case nicely details just one of those strange incidents. It was 5 a.m. September 23, 1973. A truck driver, heading into work just outside Tyler, Texas, was somewhat surprised when he spotted a small Cub airplane fly in front of another car on the road, nearly causing a wreck. He continued to watch as the plane flew up over the side of the road and hovered above the trees, whereupon it seemed to morph into a long cigar shape. To him, it looked like an elongated balloon with lights. Fascinated by what he had just witnessed, the man pulled off to the side of the road and climbed out of his truck. He wanted a clear view of the object, wondering what it might do next. Now standing beside his truck, the man watched as the cigar-shaped object moved off away from him. Suddenly, the object came right back at him, though now it appeared to have taken on a newly formed, rounded shape. It began to light up, a brilliant display of multicolored lights. The object was now over the top of a nearby house. The witness described hearing a low, loop, 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 thumping sound. Though it was loud, nobody in the house it was hovering above seemed to be awakened by it. He looked around and noticed that no other vehicles had stopped to observe the object. He was alone on that darkened roadway. Just then, a large, bright, square light seemed to descend and swing out from the object. It then began advancing towards the truck, went past, and then came back, moving directly at the truck driver. This frightened him, and he immediately determined that he might very well be in danger. He moved to jump back into his vehicle when something very strange happened. He doesn't recall exactly what happened, only that he must have blacked out. When he came to, he was standing outside his truck holding the door, though he was certain that he had actually gotten inside the vehicle. I thought I jumped into it, but when I came to myself, I was standing holding the truck door. He believed that the terror and anxiety he felt as the object came at him might have caused him to pass out, though he senses something far more frightening may have taken place. Sometimes I think this thing picked me up. I had some marks on my hip, marks on my shoulder, he told Timmerman. After coming to, the truck driver recalled looking up and seeing the object, which he described as larger than a house. In front of his eyes, it seemed to morph from a round shape into a triangle. From there, it moved backwards and went out of sight. In his write-up of the case, author Michael D. Swords wondered, what kind of technology can shapeshift? Wollman Rink is a public ice rink in the southern part of Central Park in Manhattan in New York City, near 59th Street. It is named after the Wollman family who donated the funds for its original construction. It opened in 1950. In the 1800s, two sisters, Janet and Rosetta Vandervoort, daughters of an overprotective wealthy man, would spend the winter months skating the pond, which was located directly east of what would become Wollman Rink. The girls lived in a brownstone mansion on 14th Street just off 5th Avenue in Central Park South. The two sisters absolutely loved the park, especially at night, where they would skate about doing figure eights and having a great time. In her 2005 book, Spooky New York, S.C. Schlosser described how, when Janet turned 35, her father held a large ice skating birthday gala in the park, including food spread out on picnic tables and fireworks lighting up the night sky. Janet was wearing a dark purple dress, while her sister Rosetta wore an equally stunning dress of green satin and red velvet. The two sisters skated late into the evening with some locals who attended. According to a 1997 New York Times article, the Vandervoort sisters grew so close as they grew older that they spurned all potential suitors, eventually dying as spinsters. The pair lived alone in their father's brownstone and apparently died just 3 months apart, sometime in the late 1800s. The popular consensus seems to be that they died in 1880, though author Laura Hladek, in her 2010 book, Ghost Hunting in New York City, claims that the sisters had actually passed away in 1915. Sometime in the next 3 years, as World War I raged, visitors to the park began seeing two young ladies, one clad in a purple velvet dress, the other in a red velvet dress, skating about the park's pond, doing figure eights and other skating maneuvers. As described by author Dennis William Hawke in his 2002 book, Haunted Places, these two girls, young in age, were always seen together, mostly at night. Those who encountered the pair would note that their skates seemed to glide above the ice. They sometimes appeared translucent and occasionally would be seen to taunt and laugh at other skaters they deemed less talented. As winter gave way to summer, the ice melted. People passing by the park still claimed to see the girls skating above the water. Over time, older residents came to believe that it was the ghosts of Janet and Rosetta Vandervoort who were haunting the park. One man claims that he had a very strange run-in with the spectral skaters one afternoon while on a date with a girl named Amy. Schlosser included his detailed but sadly undated account in her 2005 book, Spooky New York. Suddenly my eye was caught by a woman in an old-fashioned long purple dress. She was skating figure eights on the ice, laughing and obviously enjoying herself. I wonder why she was skating in costume. I didn't see any movie cameras around. She was joined by another woman similarly dressed in a green dress with a long red velvety coat. They skated around and around, making figure eights on the ice, obviously enjoying the lovely day. I felt quite nervous as Amy and I plodded along at the edge of the ice. We turned the bend and found ourselves face to face with a woman in purple. With a quickening of my pulse, I realized that her feet were not touching the ice, and I could dimly make out the figures of other skaters right through her body. She was a ghost. I must have gasped aloud, because Amy looked up from the careful study of her feet and saw the woman skating toward us. We were on a collision course, and Amy gave a small shriek as the woman skated right through us. For a moment, all I could feel was an ice-cold mist moving through my body. Then it was gone. Amy gave a scream that could have wakened the dead, stumbled over her feet, and we both fell onto the ice. I rolled over quickly to gaze after the ghost. The woman in purple paused in the middle of her figure eight to look at us lying on the ice. The woman in red stopped beside her, and they both laughed silently at the spectacle we made. Then they disappeared. The witness was so intrigued by the encounter that he returned to the area and spoke to locals, who filled him in on the Vandervoort sisters. He was surprised to learn that he was one of the few people to have had an afternoon sighting. The witness returned to the rink numerous times but never saw them again. So was Wollman Rink haunted by a pair of phantom skating sisters? Not everyone is convinced. On October 17, 2012, Craig Bridger wrote an article titled New York City Urban Legends for NewYorkCityGo.com. In it, he detailed and attempted to debunk various New York City-based urban legends, including the Wollman Park apparitions. Libby Tucker, an English professor at Binghamton University in upstate New York, determined that the whole thing was an urban legend, adding, "There's just one problem with this story. Wollman Rink was built in 1949, not the 1800s. Sadly, had Libby done even a tiny amount of research, she would know that a skating rink existed in the park at the very time when the Vandervoort sisters were growing up." From the website centralparknewyorkcity.org, in their section detailing Wollman Park, they wrote, "Ice skating is a long-standing and beloved tradition here in Central Park, as old as the park itself. The first part of Central Park to open to the public was the lake in 1858. That same winter it filled with skaters. Soon after, skaters filled the 59th Street Pond as well. A century later, these water bodies were closed to skaters. Wollman Rink opened in 1950, a 33,000 square foot venue built with a gift from Kate Wollman. With its romantic backdrop, Wollman Rink puts visitors beneath the magical New York City skyline by day and its twinkling lights by night. You can see why Wollman has been featured in such films as Love Story and Serendipity. It also, if you believe the witnesses, plays host to a couple of long-deceased sisters forever reliving a festive nighttime skate in the Twilight Zone, afterlife."